deficiency rates. They're still significant. Why do you think that is, and what needs to change about that?
Well, there are a couple of reasons, I think. And let me start, before I go into those reasons, in saying that the deficiency rates are something that the public company auditing firms and public company auditors and the CAQ take very seriously. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go through a list of why I think the deficiency rates are high, but I don't want that to sound as though I'm being defensive about those, because they are serious and they are to be taken seriously. However, having said that, a couple of things to remember about the deficiency rates. One is that they're deficiency rates as opposed to failures. And there has been a lot of rhetoric lately over the last year or so about the failure rate. Mm-hmm. And I find that very dangerous kind of speak, because if you are a man on the street or not heavily involved in these issues, and maybe even if you're an audit committee chair who is not as well versed in some of these issues, and you hear failure, in my mind, I would think you're talking about a fraud or you're talking about a restatement. You're talking about something very serious. And again, a deficiency is serious, but it's not a failure. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. But even when they get to the verbiage right and they talk about the deficiency rate, those are not inspections that were randomly chosen. The PCAOB inspects based on a risk profile. So they are, by definition, looking for the most risky audits that have the most hard issues in there that require a lot of judgment by the issuer, but judgment by the auditor and judgment by the inspector. So those are three layers of judgment. And of course, the inspectors have the benefit of doing it after the fact with 20/20 hindsight. I also think the PCAOB could do a better job and be more helpful to audit committees, to issuers, and to auditors by talking not just about what they've seen wrong, but where they see things that have gone right. So again, these are the most risky areas, so valuation is a perennial one. Talk about where companies and auditors have gotten it right. You don't have to name names. When I raise this with Chairman Doty, he tells me, Cindy, we're not in the business of giving attaboys. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about give some guidance, give some direction, tell people, here's a way that we've seen it done that we don't think works, and here's a way that we've seen it done that a company may want to consider or auditors may want to consider. Mm-hmm. So there has been, we've heard a couple of PCAOB board members recently in their speeches talk about how the PCAOB is looking for ways to do that. Mm-hmm. Again, this being Washington, the concern by any regulator, I used to have this argument with the inspections staff at the SEC when I was there, is we don't want to set regulation through inspection findings, or we don't want to set regulation through speeches. But I think there are those that feel as though maybe there is regulation being set through inspection findings at the PCAOB right now.
So do you think there's an acceptable level of deficiencies?
Well, I think the goal should be a very low level, but I think if you're always looking for problems, you're probably always going to find problems. Now, and that's not to say that they shouldn't do it. It's just that we need to have the structure or the framework or the vocabulary to talk about it so that we all understand exactly what we're talking about. Then one other complicating factor, and I'll say this, and again, it's going to sound like criticism, and I suppose in a subtle way it is, but it's the truth too. We just talked about it's a new organization.
Right.
So they've had 10 years of inspections experience, and you do things more and more over time. You're going to get better and better at it, and so maybe they're getting better at their inspections too.
Do you think they're staffed up enough? I mean, there is a backlog of regulatory and other compliance issues that they need to deal with.
I do think they have a good staff. I mean, they have the biggest bulk of their staff is in the inspections. I think what people are looking for from the inspections are consistency in approach, and is each inspection team approaching an issue the same way? Mm-hmm. And that's always the case when you have inspection teams. Is there across the board?